Welcome to the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. I'm Keisha, aka Coach K, the founder and CEO of Upgraded Mindsets, and this podcast will bring you real, raw, and necessary conversations when it comes to the unique journey of womanhood, launching, and building a business. Expect mind-shifting, motivational insight, valuable lessons, and so much more. So whether you're just starting or scaling up, the Woman's Hustle will prove to be a great inspiration as you navigate the roller coaster ride of learning what it takes to start and scale your business. Tune in and let's get to hustling. Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. It is your girl, Coach K, and thank you so much for tuning in. But before I get started, y'all know the drill. If you have not already, make sure you are subscribed to the Upgraded Mindsets media channel where you are watching the Woman's Hustle. If you are listening on your favorite podcast streaming platform, then make sure you favorite the podcast so it stay in rotation, okay? I appreciate y'all so much for the support, and we're going to go ahead and get rolling. So if you are watching on YouTube, then you see I'm not here by myself, so I'm going to allow my guest the honors of introducing herself. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Coach K, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
I'm
I'm
happy
so
to be
glad you're
here.
here. Thank you for
Yeah.
good. Right on sync there. I love it. Thank you for being here. Please let the listeners know who you are and what you do, baby.
Yeah, so my name is LaVista Jones. So think La Vista like the movie Hasta La Vista, baby. Yeah.
I love it.
And
Love it.
I have experience saying that over and over and over and over again. And so what do I do? So I own an agency called 31 Marketplace that was named in honor of like the Proverbs 31 woman that is familiar from the Bible. And when you look at her as a kind of example, she did a lot of stuff, right? Like I kind of refer to her as like the OG boss.
Mm,
But one of the
period.
things that I think that we as women, especially when we're trying to that comparison and kind of holding ourselves accountable to like, hey, here's these expectations, is that there's a verse in that passage where it talks about her preparing food for her maidservants. And a lot of us, I think, don't catch that because it was very clear that she did a lot of amazing things. She didn't do those things by herself. And so that's where the agency comes in, partnering with other visionaries to help them get things done, to help them amplify their impact in the marketplace without sacrificing themselves to do it.
I
So
love
I
it.
would say that I'm a systems guru. So I really love making things more streamlined, more optimized, leveraging automation as like a teammate on your team, um, and helping you marry self-care, right? So we streamline your systems and we save you all this time, but it's not for you to be on the grind and do more work. It's for you to be able to prioritize taking care of yourself.
Mm,
So
I
that
love it.
is my whole mission, is to build systems in a way that brings ease into the way that you do your work,
I love
and
it.
also allowing you to prioritize yourself and taking care of yourself. And we do many systems. We have a focus on podcasting systems, so that we're working with business owners that have a unique, and I would also describe as a thoughtfully disruptive message, helping them
Mm,
get that podcast up and running from thought and idea to actually sustaining their show, leveraging the systems and stuff like that that we use and the self-care practices so that the host takes care of themselves and they don't experience
mm.
pod fade, which is a type of burnout specific to podcast hosts. So, in a
Woo.
nutshell, we help
That.
you do what you love without sacrificing yourself to do it.
Hey, I love y'all. Just take a second and process all of that, okay? Because hey, if she described this podcast life ain't no joke. So I
And
love, love, love what it is that you offer it from a holistic standpoint, just being real. Like shout out to you for taking paying attention to that because as women and especially as women entrepreneurs, we don't. Especially when it comes to, systems and stuff like that. We take on that whole, oh, I can do it, I can handle it all, I can do it, I got it, everything's good. And it don't be good. So shout out to you for even bringing that into existence. Tell us a little bit more what got you started and where and how you got to where you are today.
yeah, so I often refer to myself as a corporate dropout turned entrepreneur. So I was an AVP at a major banking company here in the States. And I really had an amazing career for 7 years there in that position. That position in and of itself was actually created for me. And I became an AVP before I was even 30 years old because of the business acumen and the skill set that I brought to the table. The thing about it, though, Kay, is that when I talk about that season of my life, I talk about it like, like a relationship status you would see like on Facebook, like, oh, you're married, single, it's complicated. It was complicated
Mm-hmm.
because I loved the work that I did. Again, it was a job created
Right.
for me. It didn't exist until I got
Oh,
there.
wow.
Um, so I loved it. I loved every aspect of it. On the flip side, though, the way that I pushed myself in not having a balance with my own ambition and my well being, I burnt out in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And when I decided that it was time for me to resign, that's when I started working for myself and started working with private clients. And one of the things that I noticed is that these amazing visionary women that I was working with were exhibiting a lot of the habits that I had when I was still in corporate. They were not sleeping. They were not eating. They were up sending emails to their team at 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning. If they
Mm.
had spouses, they weren't dating them because they didn't have time. They were
Right.
pulling all-nighters, like all of these different things. I remember having a client with like one of my very first client or conversation with one of my very first clients about her vacation. And it was her and her husband in my office and we're talking. I'm like, okay, we're looking at her overall vision and strategy for the year. And I'm like, all right, like, let me know what vacation we're working with so that we know how to like move things on your
Yeah.
calendar. And she was like, vacation? Like she scoffed at me. And I'm like, that's a problem, right? At least in corporate, I had some sort of compliance officer knocking, on the door saying, you've got X amount of days, and if you don't use them,
If
you're
you
going
don't
to
take
lose
them, you're
them.
going to
But
lose
if
them.
you're an
Right.
entrepreneur, you don't have anybody checking you like that,
Nope.
right? And the idea of taking time off, I can't take time. I've got to be on my grind. I've got to be hustling. I've got to be doing. And so I realized that, hey, this is a problem. And these women, right, left with like that unchecked overwhelm, those unrealistic expectations that they're putting on themselves, they are going to not only burn out, but they're going to resent this
Mm-hmm.
work in this business that they started. And I don't know about you, but when I started my business, I didn't have a business goal that said in 2 to 5 years, I want to resent and hate this business that
They
I
that
put so much
didn't
time
and
in,
didn't.
yeah, into. But that's how we set ourselves up
Yeah.
when we don't take time to rest. We don't systematically look at how can this business nourish me? How can I build it in a way to nourish me instead of in a way that depletes me and makes me tired and keeps me exhausted? And so that's how that transition happened, going
I
from
love
something
it.
that I love doing in a corporate setting to going to something that I love doing now,
Mhm.
but having the lessons of burning out and realizing like, hey, not on my watch. If you are a visionary and around me, you're not going to mistreat yourself. You're
Yeah.
not going to put yourself at the bottom of the priority list. Like you are priority number one,
Yes. Oh,
period.
come on. Tell them, sis. Tell
Yeah.
them. Like number one priority. I love that you even kicked off with that because we do that as in our everyday life, right? In our personal lives, we have been, moms and wives and sisters and daughters and we'll put ourselves last and we have that whole because we're nurturing people. So we automatically just default to that. And we are breaking those stigmas. You know what I'm saying? So I love that you are very adamant about who you're serving and how you're serving them. Listen, y'all, I get it. I was actually somebody that 5 years ago you wouldn't even have told me that I'd have been an entrepreneur. I was totally fine at my corporate job. Um, very lax, I might add. Like I can't complain about that job and say I was overwhelmed. But what I was overwhelmed and frustrated about a host of things that just built up over time, right?
Mhm.
But because I began a journey that journey shifted me into entrepreneurship. That journey shifted me into saying, I want to help women overcome the things that I am overcoming. And that shifted me into full-time entrepreneurship because I was fired from my job after 7 years, was let go. So it was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, so it's purpose time for real. Now it's time to get it. But one of the things that I know I struggled with as a beginning entrepreneur was feeling like I had to do everything by myself. I had to make sure I was doing this. What do you feel like, in your professional opinion, like, do you feel that we as women, and I know how you're gonna answer it, but I want you to answer it, like out the gate, shouldn't we be looking for help out the gate when it comes to starting our businesses? Like, from the idea to the vision, clear on up. Like, what's your insight on that?
Short answer, absolutely yes. Right. My point of view is that vision is not a solo gig. The things that you're wanting to accomplish in the marketplace, you got to have people to come beside
Right.
you and help you. Going all the way back to, right, the reason that I named my company the name that it
Yep.
has. And something that you touched on, right, as I was listening to you, it reminded me of this term that I use. It's called BS recovery, right? And the BS is not quite what you might think it is. It's called boss shame. I call it boss shame. It
Mm.
is that mindset that so many of us have, especially when we're first starting out,
Yeah.
that keeps us stuck. That, hey, I can't be vulnerable to raise my hand and say I need help, or to say that I'm struggling with this, right? Because
Yes.
that's going to potentially um, harm like your reputation or the perception that people have of you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, Kay, to like get on a microphone and scream from the top of like a
Yeah.
mountain that, I'm sucking at marketing right now. Ah. But
Right, right.
is it wise to find a mastermind or a group of other business owners that understand where you're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
understand your struggles, and you can speak freely and safely around them and
Yes.
they can give you advice? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you need that kind of community and that kind of
Out the gate.
support out the gate.
Out the gate. And not so many of us, because like, as working with women, the first thing they'll say is, I can't afford. I can't afford, right? And I don't think people realize, when you're telling people to invest in themselves, yes, you are saying it from a financial standpoint, but we're also saying it from a mental standpoint, right? We're also saying it from an emotional standpoint. You don't know everything about the business that it is that you're trying to begin. If you
Hmm.
did, it wouldn't be hard for you to do, right? So investing doesn't always gear towards financial. Now, I'm going to be real with y'all. It definitely is a financial investment starting off a business. I seen a quote on social media the other day, and it was just basically listing like all of these free resources, right? And it
Hmm.
was at the end, it was like, start the business. And a lot of people kind of took offense to it because it was like, you're basically misleading people. Because it was like, Google is free, Canva is free. Like, it was listing, a bunch of different resources, but your time ain't free, and you've got a list of 10 free resources, but do you know what you're doing with these resources? Do you know how to utilize these resources? So now you're sitting here with all these free apps, and guess what? You're not doing nothing. So even though these resources are free, it's still important for you to decide on where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. I recommend anybody that is starting a business or even thinking about a business, do a SWOT analysis within yourself and then take it to somebody else,
Hmm.
and I encourage other entrepreneurs. I love that you touched on mastermind classes. As I started off, hey, I'll tell you, I signed up for a gang of these free courses, these free masterminds, these free webinars, signed up for a lot of them. And I took the value from whatever it was. If I didn't get any value of it, I can't get mad. It was free. Right. But being able to say, you know what, I've got to figure out where I'm not going to be able to excel in, right? And I've got to
Hmm.
enlist help for that. So I'm going to say this because I say this often to y'all. If this is something, if you're not ready to invest on any level when it comes to starting a business, you definitely want to think about that. And I'm not here to discourage anybody to become an entrepreneur, because I do feel like multiple streams of income is the new way of life now. We're not going to sit here and act like the old American dream of just having one set income is going to have you living your best life. It's not. But you really got to sit down and think about where and what it is that you want to do. And I see so many women go through the superwoman syndrome, is what I like to call it too,
Mhm.
of feeling like they have to do everything on their own and scared to ask for that help. What do you, when you are talking to like other women, like where do you see the most common, block that they may have when they're wanting to start their business or elevate a business?
Yeah, I think that it really lies with that not wanting to feel vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm the boss, I own this business. Therefore, I should know how to take care of this. I should know how to solve this. I should know how to do this. And, you know, that in and of itself is some B and some S. Like, it's just not true,
Yeah.
right? Like, you look at like the highest office, like in our country, that person has advisors for everything. Like, they're
Come on.
never doing something solely on their own, making a
Yeah.
decision completely on their own, right? Like every president in the history of our country has had advisors and staff and everything else. So, what the heck makes you think that you are going to start this business today and you were supposed to have every like inch of business acumen downloaded into your brain
Yeah.
yesterday, right? For you to be able to move forward without ever having help, support, or asking a question. Like, that's absurd. And so,
Yeah.
why do we hold ourselves to that sort of expectation? Because it's not realistic and it's not
No,
attainable.
it's
You know,
not.
it reminds me of something my daddy used to say to me is that he would rather learn from somebody else hitting their head against the wall than having to experience it himself, right?
Come on.
So
Talk about it, Dad. Talk
tell
about it.
me what was hard for you. What lesson did you learn? Because
Yeah.
I can glean from that without having to go through the pain myself.
That
But
part.
you're not going to be able to do that if you can't even, put yourself in a position to say, hey,
Yep.
I need this. I need help. I need support. I need to know how you did X, Y, and Z, right?
Yep.
And even if that person that you don't ask, like the answer is always no, unless you try. So, what's stopping you truly from going to that sister that you see on Instagram or that you have seen at a local networking thing that feels successful to you and be like, how
Yep.
did you do this? What did you do? What are you using? Who are you using? Like, what have you tapped into? And I would dare say 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you.
Yeah. And that's the fact. Like, I want us to break the stigma of feeling like that we can't go to other women. Listen, I know that there are bullies. I know that there are mean girls. That's in every aspect of our lives, okay? It
Mhm.
is what it is. But you have to learn and you have to find out who those people are. You can't just assume everybody is like that. You know, coming out the gate and being an entrepreneur, you are going to have to be in those spaces eventually. You can sit here and say, "Oh, I got it. I can handle it." What are you handling? You know, I love people love to post on social media, and I get it. We know social media is a very, very demanding aspect of our lives as entrepreneurs. However, I get so frustrated because people, that's the only thing that they do. But you don't
Mhm.
have a strategy for yourself to elevate that social media marketing for yourself. You're just posting or you're tagging 100 people or, and yeah, that irks me, but so like it's like you have to come up with a plan. So if you're not doing anything but investing in somebody to help you come up with a plan, there has to be some form of something. You've got to want to talk to somebody. I love what you said. 9 out of 10 times, somebody's going to be able to give you some form of help. And like those free master classes that people offer, you might listen to a 30-minute master class and only take away 5 minutes of information. But guess what? That's 5 minutes of information that you didn't know before.
Mhm.
So if nothing else, invest in the time that it's going to take to do the research, because a lot of times we just winging stuff out here. People just winging it and just throwing stuff together, and it frustrates me, and that's where I will come in and say, hey, we need to come up with a purpose plan. What's your purpose? you know working with women to establish their entrepreneurial purpose, because a lot of times women, anybody can start a business, but do you have the mindset to grow the business? And the mindset meaning I'm got to be vulnerable and ask for help and support.
Yep.
And I got to know that I'm walking in purpose, and I got to make sure that it's aligned with my personal being. Because if it's not aligned, it's you setting yourself up for failure too, and you're going to struggle, and that burnout's going to happen, that stress, that frustration, all of that's going to come into play, So I love the conversation, sis. I would love for you to share a thrill of yourself, as you've been on this journey. You have definitely made your mark and established yourself here as the expert. So what is one of the biggest thrills that you've had along the way?
One of my biggest thrills was the publishing of my first solo book. I've had the opportunity to be part of some anthologies over the course of my career, which is great, right?
Right.
I'm still a published author. My
Right.
work is out there that people can read. But it's a group project, right? It's
Yeah.
not completely like my point of view, my theories, how I am advising people to implement X, Y, and Z, but this book was. And it really was an outpouring of the years of experience that I have had in this particular area, sharing tips and really wanting to challenge the readers that read the book that there is a different way that you can engage with your work. It doesn't have to be hustle, hustle, hustle. It doesn't have to lead to burnout. You don't have to be exhausted. You having a thriving business and you thriving personally, those two things are not mutually exclusive. And so that I think was one of my biggest thrills. And the fact that my baby boy got to be part of it and come to my book signing and be there with the people. And it was the first time he heard me speak publicly. So getting to see what his mama actually does.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so dope. I love it. Especially when the kids just I know his face was just like, look at my mama. Come on, mama. Come on, mama.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. It was great.
With the thrills must come spills. So please share with us a spill that has, hit you as you have been on this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. Well, I would say that the most recent spill actually has been the loss of my daddy. I mentioned him a little earlier. And even though he's from the generation that he didn't really quite understand, okay, my daughter left corporate and is an entrepreneur now, he would still be so you okay?
Right, right.
Right. I'm Daddy, I've been doing this now for almost 10 years. I'm good. We're not homeless. We're living in a house. Everything is good.
Everything is
good.
But
I can appreciate, having a conversation with him while he was transitioning and him telling me how proud he was to sit and to witness me doing work my own way. And just kind of not necessarily following this particular route just because somebody else did it that way.
Vital standards,
he witnessed he witnessed me carving out my own path. And even though he didn't understand every step, he was proud that I was on that journey. And so it's a spill, but it's also makes my heart smile when I think about him being proud of me. And it's funny, Kay, before he passed away, I had recently received some grant funding. And I remember calling and telling him, Daddy, I got this grant. And I'm all excited. And he's like, well, when they gonna cut me my check? And I'm like, first of all, it doesn't work that way. And then I'm like, what have you done to, what have you contributed to the business or whatever? And just as quick, he was like, half of you. And I'm like, okay, touche. I mean, you do deserve a check. I don't know.
Hey, that's that quick. I love it.
Yeah. So,
oh, man.
Even though he wasn't a day-to-day member of my business, his presence overall will be missed in sharing, those new wins and thrills, with him that come up in the future because, he was proud of what his daughter was doing.
He was definitely proud. I love it. Well, we are definitely going to dedicate this episode to Dad. Again, I know, we've had a few conversations about it, and I can just tell how your face is glowing right now that he definitely was a major influence on your life. So we definitely gonna make sure that we dedicate this episode to him. So, but
Yay.
yes, sis, great conversation. Totally love it, and just appreciate your transparency. Because that's also what this is about too. I feel sometimes as women we don't always talk about, kind of the downer things, right? We see on social media where we see all of these great things that people are doing, and I'm all for it, but I also want the real, raw, and uncut. And because I
Yeah.
do that myself with clients within my business, I had to make sure that the podcast did the same thing. So it's just aligned totally with that. So just closing out here, what would be some things or maybe some tips, quick strategies or anything simple that you could offer the listeners, for those that may be thinking about starting the entrepreneur journey, those
Mhm.
that are on it and might be a little stuck, or those that are looking to kind of, do some refreshing? What would you recommend?
First and foremost, I would say raise your hand when you need to, right? Get out of your own way and get the support, the resources, the help that you need in order to move forward. Because without doing so, you're going to stay stuck
Yep.
where you are. Because if you could have done it, you would have done it already, right? So raise your hand and get the help. The second thing I would advise is um, tap into your love languages and how you can incorporate those things into the way that you work. It's definitely one
Nice.
of the foundational pieces of the consulting that I do with business owners, and it really transforms a lot of things for them because they've never thought of having a business speak their love language or even being fluent in their own love language. And so that's a game changer as well.
I love it. I love it. And you is so right about that. All right. Listen, y'all. What's coming up next for you, sis? What you got upcoming?
Yeah, well, I actually have a group coaching program that is kicking off, that ends with an amazing retreat in October. And I'm also in process of writing book number 7. So don't have a launch date in mind just yet.
Hey, that's all
It's a little
right.
different than anything else I've ever written, so I'm a little scared, but
Aw.
it'll be out there and I think it'll be good.
I love it. I love it. Super exciting. You heard her say she a little scared, but guess what? She's doing it anyway, people. And that's what entrepreneur life is all about. You're
Mhm.
not going to always be 100% sure about these things, but that is why it's important for you to, one, make sure that your personal alignment is, ready to go, but also that you have the support that you need. I say it all day. I say it all day. People, we want our family and friends to be that for us, but they are biased. And if they don't have the entrepreneurial mindset, if they have not done these things themselves, do not, let me say it again, do not go to these people for the advice that you want when it comes to growing your business. It is super important to get support, whether it's a one-time support, whether it's a, ongoing coach. You have to make that decision. All right. Listen, let them know where they can find you at on social media, baby.
Yeah, so I am on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Lavista Jones, LavistaJones. And you can also find me at lavistajones.com.
Love it. Love it. And I'll make sure that her book that she currently has, the link will actually be in the podcast description notes as well. And you guys will also be able to link her socials to get in touch with her to see more about what it is that she offers. We definitely offer some of the same services, but hey, when you really trying to grow and elevate, there is no competition. It is all about us building together and breaking those stigmas, ladies. All right. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in, LaVista. Thank you so much for being here, sis. It has been an honor. Thanks for vibing with me and sharing your thrills and spills. And I wish the best for you, baby girl.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. Y'all know before I go, make sure you have subscribed. Make sure you're favoring the podcast. And make sure you're following me on social media at Coach K Transforms on all platforms. All right. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Stay empowered, baby.